Kinji Hakari, the man with incredible luck, and I'll cover his current fights in the manga and explain why I think Hakari is stronger than people give him credit for. His first interaction starts with Yuji Itadori, and Yuji's not taking the fight seriously due to the context of the situation. However, there's a few things that I want to discuss to show Hakari's prowess as a sorcerer. When Hakari hits him, Yuji states, regardless if his hits are weak or strong, they hurt due to his cursed energy trait, and it feels like being hit by a serrated bat. This gives more stock to his AP, and while he rocked Yuji on 3 occasions, however I don't want to use these feats as Yuji wasn't guarding, and even still I don't think Hakari was going all out. However, with Yuji's durability being one of his strengths at the point of the series, and if it's just pain, Yuji won't stop. It bodes well for Hakari in the AP aspect, who's reliant on punching and kicking in his jackpot mode. We also see him use part of his curse technique with the doors, which headcanon, the potential indicators of the doors will cause most damage, which would make his curse technique pretty interesting. I do hope we get to see more of base Hakari before the use of a domain expansion. Now his first real fight is against the mangaka Charles Bernard, and Charles may not be the strongest sorcerer, however Hakari showed out in this clash. Charles' ability could initially let him see 1 second in the future, and it later increased to 2 seconds. But even with this, Hakari got into his Sanji bag and would disappear, shout out Restless Gambler, and cook Charles during his blind spots. On numerous occasions he'd perception blitz him, giving more stock to Hakari being a speedster. It's very clear from his demeanour he was not taking the fight very seriously. Moreover, Charles comments on his cursed energy being rough, and it hurts like sandpaper, showing how uncomfortable receiving punches from Hakari can be. In addition, one feat I thought was pretty cool in regards to his reactions when Charles tried to predict Hakari going into his blind shot. Hakari easily reacts and sends Charles flying with a punch. This leads to the first debut of Hakari's domain expansion. Now to summarize, his domain works exactly like a pachinko machine, but the main difference is you don't have the manual setting of pushing the balls to try achieve jackpot, as it's just part of his domain rules. This is something important I will bring up later. However, within his domain he has numerous abilities that make it overpowered. One, he has the hidden jackpot mode, which obviously works as similar in the pachinko machine, which is just a hidden mode in the pachinko. First is the domain result, which is a jackpot, which gives him unlimited curse energy and access to automatic reverse curse technique due to the unlimited curse energy, which is significantly better than manual users. And he can continuously loop jackpots since his curse technique will be constantly be replenished. We also learned in the most recent chapters that his curse technique with a default domain built in, meaning it does not work like other domain users who have to manually construct their domain. This could explain reasons why Hakari domain is special in its activation time, and from Japanese translations leads to the domain being very strong in a domain tug of war. He also has an activation speed faster than Mahito, and with his short hit being the info dub, he makes an extremely powerful domain expansion that Kashimo could not even react in time to use Hollow Wicker Basket. You can also change the coordinates of his domain, and he was the first user we saw who can change the conditions to Sukuna and Gojo, and shows his mastery of Jujutsu. He also has the hidden mode, which is similar in a pachinko machine, which just allows them to go into different modes such as hidden probability or faster spins, and allows them more avenues to go and achieve a jackpot. Now he has increased probability and faster spins, which are tools to aid him in hitting jackpot faster, and he can choose the effect to use. We see him once he reached increased probability, he used consecutive effects to redo a sequence against Kashimo, preventing all the damage down to him. Now just to clear, when I mean the mode he can choose, I'm talking about the visual effects, not in regard to faster spins or increased probability. And this is one of the visual effects and it's taken inspiration from a pachinko machine. But I don't want to dive too much into his jackpot, but the most important thing is that he has a good degree of control to help him reach jackpot. To support that point, he said in the Charles fight he's never gone past 30 times, whether taking it easy or going all out, which suggests that Hakari can manipulate the odds of hitting jackpot. Now before I go back to the Charles fight, I already know someone will say, Hakari is lying, it's based on luck. In my opinion, that statement directly contradicts that because him talking about going all out means there's a degree of control. Moreover, if it's his domain expansion which is meant to help him, I find it difficult to believe that his domain expansion would do things to harm him rather than support him, and why I push more stock to an element that we haven't seen yet from his domain to be revealed in the future. However, if you want to argue that him saying going all out means his attitude to the fight, I can't disagree, and well, we'll have to confirm this information once he gets to another fight. But I have always seen his domain to take the most fundamental rule of gambling, being that the house always wins, being Hakari. Now taking this back into context with Charles' fight, he's still in base form for the majority of the fight before he reaches jackpot, and he's pressuring Charles pretty easily while visibly showing not to be taking it serious. The main damage he received was the hit with the pen before Hakari hits Jackpot and then one kicks Charles, showing how overwhelming his unlimited curse energy can be. Now to the main fight showcase of Hakashimo versus Hakari. And I will emphasize Hakari was holding back, and it will also prove it why we haven't seen the full capability of Jackpot Hakari. First, let's address the holding back argument. After Hakari asked Panda did he lose some weight, and we have the brief interactions between Kashimo and Hakari, learning about curse energy traits and etc. And Hakari states, if I win, can I have your points, clearly addressing his goal. After this conversation, Kashimo seems to be on the upper hand and begins to get disappointed that Hakari is caving in. And mid-sentence, Hakari rocks him with a punch and hits him with a Michael Jackson pose. Now this to me is another example of him holding back, but let me provide more evidence. In 188, after Kashimo nearly kills Hakari, Hakari becomes more aggressive and Kashimo states he's getting even faster. This supports my claim that we haven't seen the full capability of Jackpot Hakari, because in those brief moments there were no equal exchange and Hakari was clearly shown to be on top in the physical aspect. Moreover, it shows there could be an even greater level to Hakari, indicating to my thesis we are yet to see the full strength of Jackpot Hakari. In addition, past this moment in the fight, we do not get to see them really exchange in hand-to-hand combat, which makes me believe Hakari's attitude to the fight change, and it's evident with him changing the coordinates of his domain to get to a point where he can put Kashimo in the water. Now to compare base Hakari and Jackpot Hakari against Kashimo and address the notion that Kashimo is stronger than Hakari. First, base Hakari was clearly weaker than Kashimo, however the difference wasn't so significant that he could not keep up. On every occasion, Kashimo had the better of him, whether that was blocking his attacks or overwhelming him, while Hakari would reuse continuation and renewal to recover damage. However, the fact Hakari can keep up provided more stuck to the fact that Hakari base form isn't as weak as people make it out to be. If Jackpot Hakari, and bear in mind I'm talking physical stats, is stronger than Kashimo, it shouldn't be surprising to expect Kashimo to be stronger than base Hakari. However, I believe there is exaggeration for people to say that Kashimo completely destroyed Hakari, which is a take I do see often, because we don't see Hakari flying across the map or getting sent across multiple punches to indicate that he's significantly weaker than Kashimo. Now, one thing in defense of Kashimo against Jackpot Hakari is the start of chapter 188, and they were shown to be equal with them both punching the containers, and then Kashimo actually has the advantage with him hitting the container on his head and then using the lightning attack towards his head. As well as in chapter 186, the clash between them was pretty equal until Kashimo charged up his electricity. However, as previously addressed, Hakari later on gets faster, showcasing that wasn't his full showcase of strength, giving more stock to him holding back. Now for comparison, I want to use base Yuta in Sendai Colony and base Hakari in Kashimo fight to emphasize why it's not fair to use their weaker versions to push an agenda but the other person is significantly stronger. Yuta in Sendai before bringing out Rika was two completely diaper performances that was evident with him not using partial Rika and trying to protect the civilians. However, I believe a lot more people use the holding back argument for Yuta, but for Hakari not so much because he nearly died 3 times. Now this leads nicely to my point that Hakari nearly dying doesn't make him weaker as people like to portray. The whole theme of Jackpot Hakari is that he's unkillable, meaning him nearly dying isn't a knock to his strength when that is his entire gimmick. Moreover, when we get to the info dump in his domain, it says because of the fast activation time, he can afford to be aggressive, which makes sense with the way he fights. This also explains why Kashimo tried multiple different ways to defeat Hakari, yet came up short. Now one big critique I see is why Hakari won because of the water. However, the water benefited both fighters, but of course more Hakari based on the circumstance. With Kashimo discharging, he had more to lose in regard to curse energy, however he also gained an advantage with creating poison to drag Hakari into the sea, which is an unfavourable scenario for each fighter. It also leads to the point with the fact that Hakari got him into that situation in the first place, where he catches him with the kick to send him into the water, and if Kashimo was so far stronger, he would be able to get out of that situation pretty easily. This leads to my final point I want to touch on before I wrap up on Hakari overall, and that's if Kashimo had his curse technique, he would have won. This take doesn't really make any sense because 1, we don't know what his curse technique does, 2, nothing suggests that the curse technique will kill Hakari anyway, and 3, Kashimo would never use the one-time curse technique because he already shown he was content with dying. Now if we want to talk about his just regular curse technique Kashimo, it still adds to my point. However, I'll happily concede that Kashimo with his curse technique is stronger. I still don't see anything that suggests he would have been able to kill Hakari when he tried 3 different ways with an attack that works like a domain expansion and could not kill Hakari. So to summarize, I'll say curse technique Kashimo is stronger than Jackpot Hakari, Jackpot Hakari is stronger than current Kashimo, and current Kashimo is stronger than base Hakari. However, if they were to have fought with his curse technique, I'm very confident to say Kashimo would still not have won. Now there's 2 arguments people will bring up. One, Hakari came into the match in jackpot, which is a very fair argument because it completely changes the scope of the match. And two, Kashimo could just kill him when he's rolling for jackpot. I'll first address the second point, as it's not in Kashimo's mentality to do so, as he stated in the fight, because those are the words of Small Fries, and how the characters act is very important towards their attitude toward fights. Now the first point is genuine fair game, and my Hakari agenda can't go that far. However, I have provided evidence, in my opinion, to suggest that Hakari's base form isn't as weak as people make it out to be, that he'll be completely steamrolled, even though it's very evident he's clearly weaker than Kashimo in base. But until a clearer showcase, we'll have to see how it would fare. If they rocked up in a 1v1 with Hakari not starting in jackpot, it most likely would go in a different manner. Now I have addressed some takes in regard to the fight. I want to talk about Hakari's AP and reverse curse technique and his whole gimmick in fights. The argument I see is Hakari's AP is trash because Kashimo wasn't really wounded post-fight. The issue with this take is we have no calculations on his curse energy reinforcement or anything to suggest how much he can tank, and we don't have any other fight with comparable people to see if jackpot Hakari AP is really bad. I'm not going to start hyping him destroying containers and grounds and etc, because that doesn't translate to anything. However, I concede the argument that his AP isn't that strong because Kashimo didn't even mention anything about his curse energy trait, and it still doesn't fit to the way Hakari fights. However, one key thing is Kashimo states that he has to keep his curse energy up when Hakari kicks him because he can't survive his blows without it, which leads to the water section. But this Kashimo fight overall shows he can just outlast people with his insane level of reverse curse technique, and his stamina and physical stats are just overwhelming. We see him automatically healing poisons, in specific the craziest feat being able to flush out curse energy while his body heals automatically. This one is genuine insane reaction feat, which highlights why he's unkillable. And then Gojo Fight has given more stocks to automatic reverse curse technique, that you can't just kill these users by conventional means. Now there's one other one, which is the very first lightning attack that a lot of people say Hakari reacted to let his hit his arm instead of his head. However, I have two takes to this point. The take I believe is that he didn't dodge, and it was rather just the paneling that made it seem that way based on two reasons. One, lightning travels in a straight line and the charge's place should go into the direction that it was placed, meaning him moving shouldn't really change the trajectory of the lightning. Meaning if he plants charges on his arm, it should go to his arm. So regardless if he moves, he shouldn't be able to react to it. This is further evident with the other two lightning attacks Kashimo did, because then Hakari should have been able to react to both. However, you can argue and say that he did react, and the two other lightning attacks were just one that caught him off guard, but the most important one is the second at his head, which highlights his insane reactions. And this rounds to his whole theme of his fights being unkillable and outlasting his opponent. Not many characters are going 3 to 4 jackpots with Hakari, and if they do, they'll end up draining their curse energy, which highlights why he's a dangerous fighter who Yuta admits is at least relative. Now the reason I bring up Yuta is because I believe he's the strongest Jujutsu High sorcerer bar Gojo, so using him as the benchmark for his contemporaries fits, and I believe a lot of people like to downplay Hakari because his fighting style is very simplistic. Overall, Hakari is my GOAT, and I hope I have accurately given you new information to change your opinion on Hakari. And if you disagree with my points, make sure to kindly leave them down below and challenge the argument, not the person. And if you like vids like this, like and subscribe, and let me know what you would like to see next out of Toji, Yuta, and Team Gojo.